Well, hello there. Welcome to the video. So for this one, bit of an odd one, I have a PlayStation 4. Okay, this is my son's PlayStation 4. We bought it second-hand from a cash converter type place here in the UK, and he absolutely adores this console. He really loves it very much. I gave him a upgrade on his PlayStation 4. I put in a 2 terabyte solid state drive to this unit. He's got loads of space for all of his games. However, when I was putting in the SSD, I noticed that the console was looking a little bit worse for wear. There were certain questions I had for him, and he answered them all pretty honestly, to be fair. Turns out his brother may have spilt something into this console, and that was a while back. I did a brief inspection on the unit. Everything looked to have been pretty sound, but I didn't really have time to open the unit up and have a look, so that's what we're going to do today. There is another potential issue. The console itself is quite warped on the bottom case. The plastic has disfigured, and I will show you that as best as I can with the angles that I've got. But the bottom of the unit, there has this definite sort of dip in it. We're going to investigate, we're going to have a look. Additionally, I have a PlayStation 4 myself. I've got two, in fact. I've got the PlayStation 4 Pro, which is my main PlayStation 4. And I have a unit similar to this one. It's the old shape, the wedge-shaped PS4. Now, my console didn't survive our move into this house. It inexplicably developed a blue light of death, and I've not been able to fix it. I think I've traced the problem to the APU, and that's just beyond my ability to fix. So I decided to use that console for spare parts. So I do actually have a spare shell for him. So being the kind of person I am, I'm going to try and take the internals out of this whilst giving them a really good look over to make sure everything is fine, essentially giving the console a new lease of life. Now, the console is quite noisy. Even for a PlayStation 4, they're quite noisy anyway. I don't know what I'm going to find in here. All I know is that it has had some sort of spill on it. To what degree, I do not know. So we're going to go investigate and see what we can see. I will try and show you this warped bulge or dip in this console. Hopefully you'll be able to see on this side. If you look there, you can see that there's a gap here. Okay, you can see where the console has essentially warped. So it's got a definite bulge in it. It is not straight by any means. I don't know what other damage I'm going to find. I have had it apart, as you can see. All the warranty screws are missing, or warranty screw covers are missing. I did that essentially to upgrade it, just give it a once over. I did find signs of rust, and to be perfectly honest with you, I didn't follow my own advice and I didn't take it apart for a deep clean, simply because I just didn't have the time to do it at that time. So we're gonna open it up and see what is going on inside. First and foremost, I'm going to power it up, and I'm going to put the game capture on as well, just to show that the console itself is working. I've powered it on, and then we're going to bring up the game capture. I do wonder actually if that's going to be the HDCP. So let me see if it's the HDCP. I'll be right back. As I thought, we did have HDCP enabled, so I'm plugging it in. And there we go. The PlayStation 4 is working. This is actually feeling very warm already. It's not really doing anything. I also have my son's controller. After searching high and low in his bedroom, I actually managed to find it. That in itself is a feat worthy of everyone subscribing, because believe it or not, that was really hard. That's probably going to be the hardest part of the video, is actually finding his controller. I love this controller, by the way. It's a great camo PS4 controller. It's all official and everything. I absolutely adore this controller, but my son won't let me have it. More power to him. This is a great controller. I think it's fabulous looking. So we're going to go back to the game capture and shut the PlayStation 4 down. Okay, we're going to turn it off completely. We do not want this thing powering on. We're also going to wait a little while before touching anything around it, because it will still have enough power within all the capacitors and everything to power the console on briefly, and we don't want it powering on. So we're going to pull out the power cable, and we're going to pull out the HDMI cable. So we're going to avoid this area and touching this area because we don't want it switching on, and we're going to slide and pop this cover off. It's got an SSD in it. This is what I've put into the console quite recently. Actually have my trusty kit. These are fantastic kits. They're relatively cheap. They seem quite basic, but you know what? They do the job. I've had this kit now for, well, must be near on 4 years, and it's still going. We reveal the console. Now that is very, very, very warm. It's not what I call red hot, but considering the console's been off for a good 5 minutes now, that is quite warm. So yeah, we're going to pop the underside off now and do that. Flip the console this way and just pop the bottom off. And here we'll see just how much damage this has done. As you can see, there's barely any manipulation there at all in the case, and that is just so badly warped it is. See that flex there? That is just terrible. And oh my god, okay, we have problems. Oh my word, that is a lot of rust. That's a hell of a lot of rust. Let's see if we can zoom in. Oh yeah, yeah. I didn't realise just how much rust. I'll be honest with you, I didn't really see this much when I originally took this apart. But oh my goodness, look at that. Oh my god! That is a definite spill. How this console is still working, I have absolutely no idea. Oh my god. Okay, so we're going to continue with the T9 and take the power supply screws out. We'll get this power supply out so it's not feeding any more power. Okay, so that's out. Power supply, it's seen a little bit better days, but it is clear. It's a little dirty and it's rusty on top. I can try and clean that up with some IPA. I'm not opening up this power supply. It's too dangerous. Do not open up power supplies. They can kill you. Okay, so don't do that. We'll put this to one side for now, and we'll focus on the console. Down here, there's no signs of rust. That is a really good thing. Okay, we do have rust on this metal shield. Again, I can swap it out with the one from my PlayStation. That's not a big deal, but I do want to check the rest of the board and all these components just to make sure it's not affected anything too much. We do have dust globules, so that's pretty gross, so we'll get that out of the way. The heatsink does look fairly clear. Let's flip the console back over. We're going to remove the clamp, the metal plates, we're going to remove the disk drive, and we're going to get this stripped down. The metal casing is off. Now we're going to just check that all the thermal pads are in place, which they are, which is great. We do have a little bit of discoloration here, so we're going to lift the motherboard out now. It did not stick well to the bottom plate, so I am a little concerned about the thermal paste. Now, yeah, that's pretty dry. I don't think there was enough thermal compound on this, to be fair. It's fairly wet. Now we're just going to check over the board very quickly. I'm not going to use the microscope this time because it's actually not looking too bad. There are no real points of concern with this. I think this, I don't know whether this is my work or not. I think I ran out of thermal pads, and as I put partial thermal pads on, we'll get these thermal pads replaced. The motherboard checks out. There's no, there are signs here of rust. I don't know whether you picked that up. I may get this cover replaced. I want to check underneath this board as well, just to make sure. that there's no signs of corrosion there. So we're going to do that now. We're going to take this plate off the disk drive. Okay, so that's to one side. I think they got very, very, very lucky with this. I'm not seeing anything. I could flip the board over and check underneath. In fact, I might do that. Pull this one out of the disk drive. Pop that one out. Be gentle, be gentle. There we go. Let's give the board a bit of a brush as well. So I'm actually relatively happy that this is clean. I'm just going to pop that screw back in. Everything's looking reasonably clean. I'm just going to pop this back in. Pull back on that. Pop that in. Push that down. All in all, I don't think it's in too bad condition, to be fair. There is a little, if you can see it on camera, there's a little dry spot here where the thermal paste just isn't on properly. I'm going to put some fresh thermal paste on, if I've got enough, that is. At this point, I don't know whether I've got enough. Looks like I may just have enough. The thermal paste is still relatively wet. So I am going to apply some fresh thermal paste, but I'm not going to clean too much of it, because it seems to be just nothing around. So I'm going to apply some fresh thermal paste. This is going back together. I'm satisfied that there's no more signs of corrosion on this. It's not the console's not in bad condition, to be fair. This is not too bad at all. Going to make sure that he has all the thermal pads, complete thermal pads. So I'm going to take these partial ones off, and I'll need 4 additional thermal pads. All the thermal pads off the other side are pretty much on there. Now I've got my PlayStation 4 out. As you can see, this is a little bit dusty, but just for a point of comparison, there are a few differences. The model number is different, so it is essentially a different version. As you can see, I've got plenty of thermal paste on mine. The power supply connector, if you can see down here, is actually smaller on my son's PlayStation than it is on mine. It's a different power supply, so I'm not going to be able to utilize the power supply. Also, if you notice over here, we have I believe these to be coils of some sort. We actually have more coils. There's a whole slew here, extra components on this board, which is my board, compared to my son's. So I don't know whether this is, my son's is a newer model. I will have to look that up. But this is my PlayStation. It is pretty much dead. Okay, it is dead as a can of spam. Okay, so we're going to borrow the thermal pads, all the thermal pads we need for my son's PlayStation. I'm going to pop one there very carefully, because they do break, as you can see. Just have to peel them off nice and gently. 2, 3, and 4. Let's donor my PlayStation. I would like to have a go with this board to see if there's anything that I can do. If it's an APU problem, then yeah, it's dead, and I can't really do anything with it. It might make a good sort of test board to see if there's anything that I can do with it, or just to have a practice. Perhaps removing the HDMI port, doing a HDMI port changeover might be a good practice for me. Who knows? Okay, so moving back to my son's console, I'm satisfied that everything looks okay. There are a few sort of rust spots around this section. This actually, to be quite honest, is because it's a different model, I won't be able to swap it from my PlayStation to his. I do believe it might be a different casing altogether. Let's compare them. No, I can't use it because it's a different die size as well. The bottom covers, they actually look pretty much the same. They've got the same sort of size components, same clips, same screws, same positioning with all the pieces. So I'm guessing I can swap this over. My son's case can sort of almost pop in and out of place quite vigorously. There's quite a big distance there. With mine, it's a lot more rigid. Okay, there's very little movement there. We're going to put everything back together now. We're going to get everything installed correctly in where it was. We are going to put, I hope this time, the correct amount of thermal paste. I'm not going to clean up this old thermal paste because it is actually still quite wet. So I think that's a reasonable dab.
Perfection. Steve
from Tronics Fix may want to lynch me at this point for having the incorrect amount of thermal paste, but we will see. I'm going to put the outer screws in first, I think, and then compress the thermal paste. So we're going to take these screws for the plate that's here. Right, with this, a way I usually do this is I'll get one side reasonably set, reasonably tight, about there. So it's still a bit loose, you can still see it moving, and then I'll do the same with the other side, making sure not to cross thread anything because you don't want to do that. Okay, so you see it's starting to get a bit of tension now, so I will evenly tighten each side a little bit at a time, just to make sure that that thermal paste compresses in the right consistency, right positions. So that is now together. I've actually missed a screw. Congratulations if you spotted that in the video. Missed tightening a screw here. So that's all back together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think that's all the screws on this side together. Let's flip it over. Okay, so we're going to replace this plate. We're going to on the disk drive. I shall get it off the other console. I'm going to pop this connector back in here. As you can see, they are pretty much identical. I think that's the same part, so we'll swap this over and we'll give them a nice clean plate from mine. Okay, so we want to make sure that nothing we screw into is going to hurt any ribbon cables, and this one right here, it looks like it is sort of crossing the path, but I have looked underneath, it's not doing that. So we're going to be very careful when we're putting screws back in. I'm going to give this console the screws from mine. Just check that the front is seated correctly, which it is not. It is now. That is now seated correctly. I'm going to plug in all the bits down here, and I'm going to put this screw back in to where it was, which was oddly missing off mine. So let's plug this cable back in here. That seems to have gone in nicely. Plug the, I believe this is the Wi-Fi. And we're going to plug this little connector in here. Click. I am going to clean up the top with some IPA, hopefully getting this looking a little bit better. Some IPA on a toothbrush. We're just going to scrub this top. See how much rust was coming off of there. That is beginning to look a little bit better. That is already looking so much cleaner and better. I'll tell you something, no one in the repair community ever really talks about how much isopropyl alcohol really smells. Make sure you're in a well ventilated area when you're using it, because it really does reek. Back to the PlayStation 4. I'm going to put the power supply back on. Now these screws, they look okay. They're not too bad. I'm going to put them back in the console. There's no signs of rust on them. But I am going to, as I've said before earlier in the video, I am going to give him some new clips. If I don't drop them. Put the screws where they need to go to make sure that we've got them all. We'll do these up. So I only actually have a few screws left, which are over here, and I'm going to flip the console back over, make sure I've got nothing missing. I did borrow a screw for this one. Oh no, oh crap. Oh, you see what I've done here? Like a damned fool, I've crushed the cable for the fan. See if we can get that back out. Oh, there we go. Whew. Always be careful and make sure you're not crushing any parts. My God. If you switch your console on whilst you do not have an SSD in there, or you've got a different drive in there, it will not boot and it will forget your actual hard drive. So be careful with that. We are ready to put the covers back on. I'm going to pop that back on there and pop that onto there. So this is my top cover. It's a little tatty, but it's not quite as bad as my lad's. So that's going to go over there and hopefully click into place. And we'll pop one in there. And we're going to take that back out.
You stupid idiot!
That one out. I'm going to pop this case back on because that's the way you do it. And we're going to pop this screw back in here. Cover on. It should slot nicely into place. Okay, that is done. Okay, so that is done. I think I've just about covered everything. The console was not looking particularly good. It had clearly some sort of liquid spill in it, but thankfully the motherboard was unaffected. The disk drive board was unaffected. It's certainly dry. The console is very dry. The casing seems to have taken the brunt of it, so I think there was a lucky escape there. We're going to plug it in. I'm going to put the game scene up in one of the corners so you can see what's going on. Hopefully it powers on and everything's back to normal, and it's just been given a brand new case. Okay, so as you can see, I've got my PS4 camera here. I've got the repair camera here, and the game capture is there. So we're going to plug it in and see if everything is still working. If it is, hallelujah, I won't have to explain why I've broken my son's console, although you know, spilling water or juice inside it clearly did it absolutely no good at all. So power lead, we're going to plug it in, see what happens, see what we get. Okay, now plug it in, hopefully no explosions. That's really good. And HDMI lead as well. Let's see if it switches on after everything that I've done. Okay, that's good. We've got the blue light, if you can see that. Hopefully you can. We have the PlayStation symbol. That's really good. Does it go to a white light? Go to a white light. It's still pulsing blue. Why are you still pulsing blue? It goes to a white light. We have sound as well. I don't like that. I'm going to leave the PlayStation running for about 5 minutes just to see if it does get warm. But it does now have the correct amount of thermal pads and hopefully the correct amount of thermal paste. Hopefully it will run a little quieter and a little smoother. So you see, already I can feel that it's not getting red hot, which is really, really good. So I've actually done a fair amount of testing with some different games, and the PlayStation 4 is actually running a lot cooler than it was. airflow is pretty good around the console. So yeah, that's solved it. Thank you for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. There are other videos on this channel. If you want to check them out, please feel free to do so. Please consider subscribing to the channel. That will really help me out, and it would help the channel to grow. I'd like to hit 1,000 subscribers very, very soon. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and until the next one, you look after yourselves, you look after one another. Take care. Bye bye for now.
I need the silence, stop the violence of the war in my head. Time's the healer, the eraser of all done and said. And as I fall back to my shelter, I know I'll only find peace in your smile.